The Adelaide Zoo had high hopes for its giant pandas, Wang and Funi, underpinning an ambitious growth plan. What's happened instead is the zoo is now in a giant pile of financial poo, $24 million of debt. In a moment we'll speak with the chairman of the board of Zoos SA, Kevin McGuinness, but first this background report.
We're going to the zoo, zoo, zoo. How about you can come too.
There's something about a star. Fans clamour to be near you. Everyone wants a piece of you.
This is Penny Wang, and I wonder if you could open the door and let Wang out.
When Wang and Funi arrived in Adelaide in late 2009, there were great expectations their star qualities would rub off.
We've already had a lot of people come from interstate and indeed from overseas to see them. They're the only pandas in the Southern Hemisphere, and they have a magical effect.
If Funi and Wang have babies, it's going to go ballistic. I mean, just going to be huge.
The zoo says while Funi is interested, Wang just isn't feeling the magic. While there's no pitter-patter of little panda feet yet, there is an elephantine $24 million debt. The Liberals say the zoo's black and white stars aren't solely to blame for the red ink.
Well, obviously a big punt on panda tourism, but also some related expenditure, and I guess this is what we need to get to the bottom of in relation to a redesign of the entrance to the zoo and new entertainment and corporate facilities.
Former Foreign Minister Alexander Downer, who headed the push to bring the pandas here, says the zoo does not pay the $1 million a year fee to China for them. That's picked up by another federal agency. After weeks of refusing to comment, this is how the zoo now explains what's gone wrong. The panda project cost $37 million, including a new entrance, fencing and corporate facilities. The state government tipped in almost $19 million. Then the newly elected Rudd government reneged on a Howard government commitment for $5 million. The global financial crisis meant only $2.5 million out of an expected $10 million of private sponsorship was achieved. And while the zoo says overall visitor numbers are up because of the pandas, that's also dropped off more sharply than expected. Still, the zoo is looking on the bright side.
By any measure, they've been a fantastic success. But clearly, to support the level of debt that we had, we needed to see a sustained level of visitation, and we didn't see that.
The zoo insists Westpac Bank has no intention of foreclosing on the debt and sending in the administrators. The zoo is not making payments on the debt, either the principal or interest. It says the government too has pledged its support.
Well, we're committed to making sure that the zoo can meet its running costs, that it can pay its employees, that the animals are fed and that the gates remain open.
But there are still questions over the future. How is the zoo going to pay down its debt? How did they get the sums so wrong? The Liberals argue there are questions for the government too.
The government should have had an independent cost-benefit analysis of the projections of revenue and visitor numbers and expenditure that the zoo was projecting. Because it may well have been that an independent analysis at that stage would have said, hey, yes, you have to spend the money on the panda enclosure, that's a given, but you don't need to spend the millions on a flash new entrance to the zoo or as much money on the corporate and entertainment facilities.
I don't remember at the time that the grant was given that there was any particular political controversy. As far as I'm aware, open to correction, but as far as I'm aware, there was bipartisan support for bringing the pandas to Adelaide and for the $19 million grant which the government gave to the zoo.
Unlike other Australian city zoos, Adelaide is not in government hands. Zoos SA gets $3 million a year recurrent funding from the state and says that hasn't changed in 8 years. Sydney's Taronga Zoo says it gets $15 million a year from the New South Wales government, about 20% of their budget. The Melbourne Zoo gets $13 million. Adelaide Zoo says it needs much more, but their coyness continues about how much.
My advice is that the annual grant that the zoo get at the moment is sufficient, but I'm open to having another look at that within the context of a budget of next year's budget.
Mama's taking us to the zoo tomorrow.
Even if Wang suddenly finds Funi fetching, a baby panda won't solve everything. The zoo still has a lot of work to do.
We're going to the zoo, zoo.